Welcome back. News now coming in from the Supreme Court, which has come down heavily as far as the Chandigarh mayoral elections are concerned. The Supreme Court wrapping the presiding officer who conducted those elections, CJI Chandrachud, going on to say that it's obvious that he defaced the ballot papers. He even called the election a mockery and a murder of democracy. This comes at a time when we've seen the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress combined knocking on the doors of the Supreme Court, alleging bias in favor of the BJP by the presiding officer. Arunima, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more details. Some very strong observations, Arunima, coming to the fore from the CJI.
Yes, it's a very strong setback for the presiding officer and perhaps for the Bharatiya Janata Party also, because what ultimately happened is that BJP was put in a winning position, and Aam Aadmi Party and Congress, which had come together in these polls, cried foul. Now the Supreme Court has supported the allegations that were made by the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress, saying that the presiding officer did not do the job as was assigned. And now there are directions passed that till the time the Supreme Court hears this matter next. So next week, Monday, is when the direction has been passed to relist it. Till that point of time, the Chandigarh Corporation cannot hold any meeting. Any meeting that would have been called for will now have to be adjourned for a later date. And the entire process of how the elections were conducted, all documents related to that will have to be sent to the Registrar of High Court, and the entire process will have to be videographed and kept as evidence.
Arunima, do stay on with us. Spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party joining us on this broadcast. Abab Singh Garewal, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. How do you look at this strong observation that has come to the fore from the CJI himself, casting aspersions on the conduct of the presiding officer?
Well, thank you for having me, ma'am. We expected this, and that's the reason we went to the Honorable Supreme Court, because number one, the law needed some interpretation and some clarification, and number two, it was so blatant and it was so shameless that it couldn't be hidden, and everything was on camera. And we are so glad that the Chief Justice has taken note of it, and he's asked for this man to be prosecuted. And at least now the whole country knows how blatantly the BJP is trying to not allow people's franchise to take their fruit. They just can't bear it when people don't choose them. And that's what happened in Chandigarh. And I'm sure now that the Chief Justice has settled it, the process will be fair this time around.
Abab Singh Garewal, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. The Aam Aadmi Party, of course, claiming vindication, Arunima, for what has transpired in the Supreme Court. We'll try and reconnect that line with my colleague, getting us more details of what exactly transpired in court. But the Supreme Court, the CJI specifically, coming down very heavily on the presiding officer who conducted the Chandigarh mayoral elections. Remember, 8 votes were regarded invalid during that election, due to which the BJP was put in a winning position. The Aam Aadmi Party Congress combined candidate lost out, after which both the parties approached the Supreme Court, claiming that the presiding officer was working at the behest of the BJP. This was illegal. The Supreme Court, the CJI, also coming out and observing that this indeed was mockery of democracy, because the presiding officer's conduct was under question. It's mockery of democracy is what the CJI came out and said, also going on to observe that the ballot papers were indeed defaced by the presiding officer in Chandigarh. Remember, the mayoral elections, after much delay, were held 2 weeks ago. The court has also decided that until the next hearing, which happens on next Monday, which is a week from now, everything would be in abeyance. Arunima, I believe, is back with us on the phone line. Arunima, is there a chance, is there a scope that the court might order re-election?
One can't second guess really what's on the mind of the Supreme Court. From the kind of observations and even the directions that have been passed today, looks like the judges have made up their mind that what has happened is not as per constitutional provisions. But there is still 1 week's time. Can the presiding officer come up with a legal defense for the action? Can they come up with a defense for why was the decision taken? On all of that will depend the final order from the Supreme Court. But if you go by what has happened today, if you go by what is the kind of observation has been made today, the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party should be upbeat. They have been wanting re-elections. They have been wanting the entire process of mayoral election be nullified. They should be upbeat. But we'll have to wait and see ultimately what defense is presented by the other side.
Right, Arunima, now there is going to be a 1 week time until which everything is going to be in abeyance. The presiding officer will also be putting his point across as far as the Supreme Court hearing goes. But the Supreme Court has made it very clear that anything and everything that happens henceforth needs to be recorded. There has to be videography done.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Supreme Court has come down very heavily. Murder of democracy, murder of constitutional means. There have been very strong words for the presiding officer. And they will, these observations will be music to the ear of Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party, because this is exactly what they have been alleging. Arvind Kejriwal himself, along with Bhagwant Mann, led that protest to the BJP national headquarters. This is exactly what they have alleged, that because you could not win in a fair manner, you have decided to murder democracy. And the Supreme Court is also finding some merit in those allegations. So one does feel that at this stage, what has happened, next time a presiding officer should be wary. First, we saw it happen in Delhi mayoral elections also. If you recall, there was so much tamasha and so many postponements before Delhi finally got its mayor. And now there's a repeat in Punjab. So what the Supreme Court is saying should be a lesson for the presiding officers here on.
Right, Rajkumar Virka joining us on the broadcast. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Now, how do you look at this development? The CJI there coming down heavily on the presiding officer.
देखिए, मैं समझता हूँ कि जो हमें जुडिशरी पर भरोसा है, देश के कानून पर हम सबको भरोसा होना चाहिए। और जहाँ तक सवाल इस बात का है, हम ये इच्छा करते हैं कि देश की जुडिशरी इस केस को फास्ट ट्रैक में इमीडिएट सुनना चाहिए इसको, क्योंकि जिस तरीके से वो जिसको उन्होंने प्रेसिडिंग अफसर बनाया था, वो एक आदमी जो था वो बीजेपी का जो एक कार्यकर्ता था, जिसको उन्होंने नॉमिनेट काउंसलर के तौर पे बना दिया और उसको प्रेसिडिंग अफसर कह दिया। उसने 20 में से 8 वोट को जो है वो रद्द किया है। और हमें लगता है कि जिस तरीके से देश के कानून से विश्वास जो है देश को है, लेकिन जिस तरीके से चंडीगढ़ की एडमिशन से ऊपर से विश्वास हटा है, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के विश्वास टूटा है लोगों का, उस विश्वास जुडिशरी को बहाल करना चाहिए और इमीडिएट इंसाफ देना चाहिए। और मैं समझता हूँ कि क्योंकि देश के कानून का फैसला है कि उन्होंने फरवरी की डेट डाली है और हम उसका इंतजार करेंगे।
जी, राजकुमार विरका जी, धन्यवाद हमसे बात करने के लिए। द कांग्रेस टू देयर कमिंग आउट एंड alleging that this is exactly what we were saying, which is why they are now claiming vindication as far as the Supreme Court's observations go. There is another 1 week to go before we see any decision come to the fore. The next hearing, of course, is going to be on next Monday. As far as the Chandigarh mayoral elections go, remember the BJP candidate had won after 8 votes were held null and void, invalid by the presiding officer. Moving on now, the Uttarakhand